Phew, that was close.
Why are you all the way here, Thomas?
I took Edward's truck, sir.
Why did you come so fast?
I didn't mean to. I was pushed.
Well, you have a lot to learn about trucks, Thomas. The longer you shunt them, the more knowledge you will have. They are silly, noisy things that must be kept in order. Now shunt these trucks away and go back to Tidmouth. I will speak to Edward later.
Yes, sir.
The little tank engine said, and he sadly puffed away. The fat director indeed spoke with Edward when he came back from shunting Henry's local. The fat director was not happy about him and Thomas's arrangement. Edward, I know you're a kind engine, and I know you want Thomas to see beyond the yards here, but he has to learn first. The last tank engine that pulled a goods train on the main line. Oh dear God! I'm sorry, sir. I never thought of it like that. It's fine. But you will have to stay here and show him how to shunt the yard and keep the trucks in order. Who will pull my local services, sir? Whiff can take it while you're here. Edward smiled. Whiff was a respectful, hard-working engine, but most of all he was wise and patient, and Edward always respected him for it. Yes, sir. Should we start later? It's a bit late. You both will start tomorrow morning. Yes, sir. Goodbye. When Thomas arrived at the sheds, Edward told him the arrangements. Thomas was pleased, but not for long. In the sheds, there were 2 red engines. There was Winston, of course, and another engine. His name was Geoffrey. He had stayed at the sheds for a few years now, and had the most arrogant and cocky attitude towards the engines. Like 98462 and 87546 before him, he was reckless, abrasive, and much too big for his wheels. But unlike his predecessors, he had a different reason for it. He was a part of the ROD in the First World War, and one day he saved a tank engine that was taking fuel to the base on the other railway. He and his crew were given high praise for what they did. So many years of being treated like a railway celebrity cracked his smokebox. And ever since, he thought that tank engines were useless piles of scrap, and he always thought that tenders were marks of distinction. So when Thomas and Edward were talking, Geoffrey eventually butted in.
I can't wait until I'm out of these yards, Edward. I can't wait to pull my own train.
Geoffrey scoffed.
You pulling your own train? What a load of nonsense. You're just a shunter.
But he has proved himself that he's capable of taking trains just as much as you can.
Oh, really? When he pulled his first passenger train, he left his coaches behind. And now he let some stupid trucks push him down the hill and almost crashed. He's proven something, all right. He has proven that he is an immature, whiny, little spoiled brat that should be lucky that he has work in the first place. Every time I sleep in these damn sheds, it's, I want to see the world, or I want to pull my own coaches. Can you do everyone a favour for once, and just shut up?
Thomas was crushed. The Red Engine's words were too much to bear. He slunk into the sheds without a word. Edward was furious. "You have no right to talk about someone like that. Who do you think you are?"
A thinker, Edward. Maybe you should start thinking too.
Just then, a big blue engine puffed out of the sheds. By the looks of the engine's face, he was not very happy.
Geoffrey, will you ever shut that pie hole of yours? Nobody wants to hear that malarkey, and I'm getting tired of you complaining all the time. Leave the tank engine alone, or you'll be sleeping in the sea tonight. Now you shut up, and let us important engines get some sleep.
After that, Geoffrey stayed silent, and when he did, Edward went to check on Thomas from inside the shed. Thomas was looking down at his buffers, ashamed. Edward sighed. "Cheer up. Geoffrey's just being stupid and wants attention again. Tomorrow I will show you how to shunt goods trains. All right." Thomas just sighed and closed his eyes, wondering what the next day will bring. It was 6 o'clock. They had an hour to shunt the first train. Edward woke up Thomas at 5:30, so they could get filled up with coal and water before they started work. Thomas was awfully tired, but when the firelighter lit his fire, he was wide awake, and they headed off to the shunting yards. When they arrived, Edward insisted that they waited for someone. "We have to wait for the yard manager."
Why? I thought he was expecting us.
"He already knows we're here. We just need to get something from him."
What?
Just as he said that, the yard manager arrived with 2 pieces of paper. He gave one to Edward's driver and one to Thomas's fireman, and then he headed back to his office. Thomas was confused.
What did he give us?
"He gave us the diagrams for the trains we have to organize, and we have to put them on specific sidings. There are 5 goods trains that have to leave within 2 hours, so we better hurry. By the way, trucks aren't like coaches. You can bump them whenever they misbehave,"
Alright.
said Thomas. He was unsure, but he was still happy he was learning about trucks. The yard sidings were different from the coach sheds. The trains had to be organized in a certain way, with brake vans at the end. After a few hours of bashing the trucks around and making trains, they were given a rest. Edward was surprised that Thomas had learned so quickly. "Well, I have to say, Thomas, you are doing a fantastic job. It's like shunting trucks comes naturally to you."
Well, I did have a great teacher.
Edward grinned. "So, if I go to the big station and arrange coaches while you arrange trucks here, can you handle that?"
Definitely.
The tank engine sounded confident. Edward chuckled. "Well, alright, but just for 2 hours. I'll be right back,"
Alright.
said Thomas, and he continued shunting. Edward had arranged the stopping train for Whip. When he arrived, Edward told him what Geoffrey had said the night before.
Big for his wheels. He needs to know that this isn't a battlefield, and if he has some issue with his smoke box, then he can jolly well go to the works, not insult poor Thomas.
Right.
Alright, I've got to go. Bye, Edward.
"Goodbye," said Edward, and he continued shunting the coaches. After a few hours, he went back to the shunting yards. When he got back, he was surprised. The yards were immaculate. The yards used to be so disorganized when they first arrived. Now the trains had been organized for the next 4 hours. The yard manager saw how hard the little tank engine was working and had decided to give him a rest. Now Thomas was in one of the sidings, sleeping soundly. The yard manager came up to Edward. "I never expected the youngster to arrange the train so neat and fast. The fat director's lucky that he bought him, if you ask me." Edward smiled humbly. "Now I need you to take the goods train from the number 6 siding to Groven's Gate." "But sir, I'm supposed to stay until Thomas knows how to shunt trucks properly, as of the fat director's words." The yard manager grinned. "Don't worry, I called him, and he said it's fine. He's going to check up on Thomas as soon as he can." "Alright, I'm on it, sir." And he puffed away to collect his train. Other engines were as surprised as Edward when they first arrived at the yards. Even more so when they realised Edward had left hours ago, and it was just Thomas organising the trains now. When trains came in, Thomas dismantled them, and made new trains with the trucks heading in the opposite direction. It was fun for him, especially listening to the driver's radio while doing so. When dusk had broke over the yards, the work was finished. The fat director arrived in Edward, and they were pleased to see the yards in ship-shape condition. "Well, Thomas, I'm very proud of you. This yard used to be in chaos before you and Edward organised it. You are both really useful engines." Thomas grinned. He hadn't felt this good in weeks. When they arrived at the sheds, Geoffrey, Gordon, and Henry were there. Geoffrey sulked as the other 2 big engines laughed at him. One of the couplings on his goods train had broken after he banged the trucks for not coming quietly, and then when he stopped, the trucks bashed into him, causing a big mess. The engines congratulated Thomas on a hard day's work.
"Congratulations,
Indeed,
Thomas."
well done,
Oh, it was nothing. It's all in a day's work.
Thomas said shyly, and then he went to arrange the midnight goods train. As he went, he felt Geoffrey's eyes were glaring at him.